cold open hook.
What if everything you've been taught about motivation is wrong? What if the advice we've heard for decades, work harder, offer bigger rewards, increase incentives, push people harder, isn't the answer at all? Think about how motivation usually works. At work, employees are offered bonuses, raises, promotions, performance incentives. At school, students are rewarded with grades, certificates, recognition, awards. Even as children, we learn the same formula. Behave well, get rewarded. Behave badly, get punished. The entire world seems built on rewards and punishments. And at first glance, it makes perfect sense. If you want people to do more, pay them more, reward them more, incentivize them more. Right? Not exactly. Because something strange has happened. Despite bigger incentives, despite better technology, despite more opportunities than ever before, people are struggling. Employees feel disconnected from their work. Students lose interest in learning. Creative professionals burn out. Entrepreneurs lose passion. And millions of people wake up every morning feeling unmotivated. A modern paradox. We've never had more rewards available. Yet many people feel less driven, less engaged, and less fulfilled. How's that possible? What if we've been looking in the wrong place? What if motivation doesn't come from money alone? What if it doesn't come from trophies, or promotions, or external recognition? What if the real source of motivation is something deeper, something already inside us?
This is the question explored by Daniel Pink. A question backed by decades of psychological research. A question that challenges everything we think we knew. What truly motivates human beings? When we misunderstand motivation, we build workplaces that drain people, schools that discourage curiosity, and lives that feel empty despite success. We chase rewards while ignoring what actually drives us. The most powerful motivation isn't external. It's internal. It's not about what you get. It's about who you become. And understanding this changes everything. So if money isn't the full answer, if rewards aren't enough, and if punishment don't create lasting motivation, then what does? What really motivates human beings? And why have we been getting it wrong for so long? To answer that question, we first need to understand the motivation problem itself.
The motivation problem. For most of human history, motivation seems simple, almost obvious. If you wanted someone to do something, you rewarded them. If you wanted them to stop doing something, you punished them. Reward good behavior. Punish bad behavior. That was the formula. For centuries, this approach dominated society. Kings used it.
Government used it. Businesses used it. Schools used it. Even families used it. Good behavior earned rewards. Bad behavior brought consequences. And for a long time, it worked. Why it worked? Think about factory work during the industrial age. The goal was efficiency, consistency, repetition. Doing the same task again and again. Faster, cheaper, better. In that environment, rewards made sense. Do more, get paid more. Produce more, earn more. The relationship was straightforward. Then, something happened. The world evolved. Technology advanced. Machines became smarter. Computers automated routine work. Artificial intelligence began handling repetitive tasks.
And suddenly, the most valuable skills are no longer routine. Today's economy rewards something very different. Creativity, innovation, problem solving, adaptability, critical thinking, the ability to generate ideas, to invent solutions, to see opportunities others miss. And that's where the old motivation system begins to break down. Imagine asking someone to assemble boxes all day. Offer a reward, and they might work faster. Imagine asking someone to invent a groundbreaking product, write a best-selling book, create a revolutionary business idea, solve a complex problem. Something changes. Tasks require creativity. People need freedom, exploration, curiosity, experimentation. Large rewards often create pressure.
Pressure creates anxiety. Anxiety narrows attention, and narrow attention limits creativity. The very thing designed to motivate people can sometimes reduce performance. The hidden problem. This creates a major challenge. Businesses continue using old systems. Schools continue rewarding grades. Organizations continue relying on incentives. Yet many people feel disconnected, uninspired, and disengaged. The engagement crisis. Millions of employees show up every day, not because they're excited, but because they have to. Students study for tests, not because they love learning, but because they fear failure. External rewards may produce compliance, but they rarely create passion. The question nobody asked. For decades, we assumed people were machines. Push the right button, get the desired result. But human beings aren't machines. We're far more complex. We seek meaning, growth, purpose. And those desires can't always be bought. The turning point. This realization sparked a revolution in psychology. Researchers began asking a different question. Instead of, how do we motivate people? They asked, what naturally motivates people already? Powerful reflection. Think about the activities you love most, the hobbies you enjoy, the skills you willingly practice, the goals you pursue without anyone forcing you. Why do you do them? Not for money, not for rewards, but because something deeper drives you. For most of history, motivation was simple. Reward good behavior, punish bad behavior. And for routine tasks, that system worked. But the modern world changed. Today's economy rewards creativity, innovation, problem solving, critical thinking. And that's exactly where traditional motivation begins to fail. So if the old system no longer works, what comes next? To answer that, we need to understand how human motivation evolved. From survival, to rewards, to something far more powerful. Motivation 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0.
To understand what truly motivates people, we first need to understand how motivation evolved. Because human motivation didn't stay the same. It changed as society changed. It evolved as our needs evolved. And according to Daniel Pink, there are three major versions of human motivation. Motivation 1.0, Motivation 2.0, and Motivation 3.0. The first version is the oldest, Motivation 1.0. The motivation of survival. Thousands of years ago, human beings focused on one thing: staying alive. Every decision revolved around survival, finding food, finding shelter, avoiding danger, protecting family, escaping predators. The brain was wired for survival. Eat, sleep, stay safe, repeat. These instincts still exist today. They remain deeply embedded within us. But as civilization advanced, human needs expanded. Then came Motivation 2.0, the system most of us know today. The carrot and the stick. Do something good, get rewarded. Do something bad, get punished. See?
And for a long time, it worked remarkably well. Factories used it. Schools used it. Businesses used it. Governments used it. Families used it. The formula seemed logical. Work harder. Earn more. Produce more. Receive rewards. Break the rules. Face consequences. For repetitive work, he was effective. For predictable tasks, he delivered results. But then, the world changed. As technology advanced, machines began doing routine work. Computers handled repetitive tasks. Automation increased efficiency. And suddenly, human value shifted. From repetition to creativity. From following instructions to solving problems. From obedience to innovation. And Motivation 2.0 started showing cracks. Because rewards are powerful, but only up to a point. They can make people comply, but they rarely inspire greatness.
This brings us to Motivation 3.0, the most powerful form of motivation. The desire to do something because it matters, because it is meaningful, because it is satisfying, because it aligns with who you are. Not because someone pays you, not because someone rewards you, but because the activity itself is rewarding. Think about it. Have you ever spent hours learning a skill without being paid? Reading about something you love, practicing a hobby, building a project, helping someone? Nobody forced you. Nobody offered a bonus. Nobody promised a reward. Yet you did it anyway. That's Motivation 3.0. This new motivation comes from within. Psychologists call it intrinsic motivation. The internal desire to grow, to improve, to contribute, to create. It's the force behind artists, entrepreneurs, scientists, inventors, athletes, and anyone pursuing excellence. Not because they have to, because they want to. The world no longer rewards obedience alone.
It rewards innovation, adaptability, learning, original thinking. And those qualities cannot be forced. They must come from within. That's why Motivation 3.0 isn't just another theory. It's the future of human performance.
Ask yourself, what would you do even if nobody paid you? What activities make you lose track of time? What challenges excite you?
what work feels meaningful? The answers reveal your deepest motivations. Daniel Pink explains motivation in 3 stages. Motivation 1.0, survival. Food, shelter, safety. Motivation 2.0, rewards and punishments. The carrot and the stick. Then comes motivation 3.0, the desire to do something because it matters, because it's meaningful, because it's satisfying. And this is the future of human performance. But if rewards aren't the answer, why do so many organizations still rely on them? And what does science actually say about incentives? The answer may surprise you.
The surprising truth about rewards. Rewards seem logical. In fact, most of us never question them. The idea feels obvious. Work harder, get rewarded, perform better, earn more. Simple. It's a formula we've heard our entire lives, from parents, teachers, managers, and society itself. The harder you work, the bigger the reward. Most organizations operate under one belief. If rewards motivate people, then bigger rewards should motivate them even more. Right? Offer a larger bonus. People will perform better. Increase incentives. Results will improve. Raise the stakes. Productivity will rise. At least, that's what we assume. But when psychologists began studying motivation, something unexpected happened. The data didn't support the assumption. Again and again, researchers found a surprising pattern. For certain kinds of work, bigger rewards didn't improve performance. Sometimes, they actually made performance worse. Imagine that.
The very thing designed to motivate people can reduce effectiveness, can slow progress, can hurt results. How is that possible? The answer lies in understanding the difference between tasks. Some tasks are mechanical, routine, predictable, step by step. For these tasks, rewards often work well. The goal is efficiency, speed, accuracy. Rewards can improve routine performance, but creative work is different. Creativity isn't about following instructions. It's about discovering possibilities, exploring ideas, making connections, finding solutions no one else sees. Creativity requires curiosity, experimentation, freedom, and imagination. Creativity needs an open mind. When a large reward is introduced, something changes. The brain becomes fixated on the prize. Attention narrows. Focus tightens. Instead of exploring possibilities, people begin chasing outcomes. They become cautious, less willing to experiment, less willing to take risks. Because now, failure feels expensive. Think of a flashlight. When you narrow the beam, you see one thing clearly. Everything else disappears. That's useful for routine tasks, but creativity works differently. Creativity needs a floodlight, a wide view, multiple possibilities, unexpected connections. Rewards often create a flashlight mindset. Creativity requires a floodlight mindset. When people become obsessed with rewards, they stop asking, what can I create? And start asking, what will I get? The focus shifts from the work itself to the reward attached to it. And that's where motivation begins to weaken. The most powerful creators, artists, inventors,
Entrepreneurs, scientists, often start with curiosity.
Not rewards. They are driven by the challenge, the mission, the joy of discovery, the desire to improve. The work becomes the reward. This matters. Today's world values innovation more than repetition. Original ideas matter. Problem solving matters. Adaptability matters. Creativity matters. And these qualities cannot be forced. They must be inspired. That's why understanding motivation is so important. Because if we rely only on rewards, we may accidentally suppress the very qualities we need most. What you reflection. Think about the moments when you've done your best work. Were you thinking about money? Or were you completely immersed in the task? Focused, curious, engaged. Chances are, your best work came from within. Core message. Rewards seem logical. Work harder, get rewarded. Simple. But studies reveal something surprising. For creative work, large rewards often reduce performance. Why? Because rewards narrow focus. And creativity requires expansion, transition. So if rewards aren't the ultimate answer,
what actually drives people to perform at their highest level? The debut of what we have discovered? The answer begins with a powerful experiment. One involving a candle.
and a challenge that changed the science of motivation forever.
The candle problem experiment. Sometimes a simple experiment can change the way we understand human behavior. And one of the most important experiments in the science of motivation started with 3 ordinary objects: a candle, a box of thumbtacks, and a book of matches. Nothing looked extraordinary. Yet this simple challenge would reveal a powerful truth about how our minds work. Researchers gathered participants and presented them with a problem. The task seemed straightforward. Attach the candle to the wall. Make sure the candle can burn properly. And prevent wax from dripping onto the table below. Simple enough. The participants examined the objects: the candle, the thumbtacks, the matches. And then they began searching for a solution. At first glance, most people approached the problem the same way. They tried attaching the candle directly to the wall. They experimented with thumbtacks. They searched for obvious answers. But none of those approaches worked, because the solution required creative thinking, not effort, not speed, not brute force. Creativity. Eventually, some participants noticed something others overlooked. The box holding the thumbtacks wasn't just a container. It could become part of the solution. Empty the thumbtacks. Attach the box to the wall. Place the candle inside the box. Light the candle. Problem solved. The candle stayed secure.
the wax stayed contained, and the challenge was completed. But this experiment wasn't really about candles, or thumbtacks, or matches. It was about the human mind. Researchers wanted to understand something deeper.
How do incentives affect problem solving? How do rewards affect creativity? The answer surprised everyone. The researchers divided participants into groups. One group simply solved the problem. Another group was offered rewards. The faster they solved it, the bigger the reward. Everything seemed logical. A bigger incentive should create better performance. That's what most people expected. But that's not what happened. The people offered rewards actually performed worse. They took longer, made more mistakes, and struggled to find the solution. Meanwhile, those without incentives often solved the problem faster. The reward had become an obstacle. Why did this happen? Because rewards changed the way people thought. Instead of exploring possibilities, they focused on winning. Instead of being curious, they became pressured. Instead of seeing new connections, they narrowed their attention. Their minds became locked onto the reward, and pressure reduced creative thinking. Psychologists call this phenomenon functional fixedness, a tendency to see objects only in their usual roles. The box was viewed only as a container, not as a candle holder. Pressure made this mental trap even stronger. The participants became focused on the reward and less capable of seeing alternatives. The harder they chased the prize, the harder the solution became to find. The bigger implication. This experiment wasn't just about a puzzle. It revealed something important about life. Modern work often requires creativity, innovation, problem solving, original thinking. And these abilities flourish under freedom, not pressure. When people become obsessed with rewards, their thinking often becomes smaller, not bigger. Have you ever faced a difficult challenge? And the more pressure you felt, the harder it became to think clearly. Maybe during an exam, presentation, a business decision, or an important project. Pressure can sharpen routine performance, but it often weakens creativity. This experiment challenged decades of assumptions. It showed that motivation isn't as simple as offering rewards. Human beings are more complex. Our minds need space to explore, to imagine, to connect ideas. And sometimes, the best way to unlock performance isn't adding more pressure. It's removing it. One famous experiment changed everything. Participants were given a candle, a box of thumbtacks, and matches. Their challenge? Attach the candle to a wall. The people offered rewards actually solved the problem slower because pressure reduced creative thinking. If rewards aren't the strongest driver of performance, then what is? According to Daniel Pink,
The answer begins with something every human being desires: the freedom to choose.
Autonomy, the first driver.
If rewards aren't the ultimate source of motivation, then what is? What makes people willingly give their best effort? What drives creativity, persistence, and excellence? According to Daniel Pink, the first answer is autonomy. At our core, human beings want control. Not control over others, control over themselves, control over their choices, their actions, their time, their future. We want to feel that our lives belong to us, not to someone else. Think about how you feel when someone forces you to do something, even if it's a good idea, even if it's beneficial. The moment your freedom disappears, resistance often appears. You feel restricted, limited, controlled. Because autonomy is a basic human need. We naturally push back against excessive control. Autonomy don't mean doing whatever you want. It doesn't mean avoiding responsibility. And it doesn't mean rejecting structure. Autonomy means having a meaningful choice, the freedom to decide, the ability to influence your own actions, the opportunity to take ownership. It's the difference between being managed and being trusted. Imagine two employees. The first is constantly monitored. Every task is dictated. Every decision requires approval. Every minute is controlled. The second employee is trusted, given responsibility, allowed to make decisions, encouraged to solve problems independently. Which one is more likely to feel motivated? Which one is more likely to innovate? Which one is more likely
To care about the outcome? The answer is obvious. Ownership changes everything. When people feel ownership, something powerful happens. Work becomes personal. Goals become meaningful. Challenges become opportunities. Instead of asking, "What do I have to do?" they begin asking, "What can I create?" Ownership transforms obligation into commitment. Have you ever noticed how entrepreneurs often work long hours without being forced? How artists spend years perfecting their craft? How passionate creators willingly invest enormous effort? It's not because someone is constantly rewarding them. It's because they feel ownership. The work belongs to them. Autonomy fuels persistence. Research consistently shows that people thrive when given choice, when they have a voice, when they can influence outcomes, when they feel trusted. Motivation rises, engagement increases, creativity expands, performance improves. Freedom doesn't weaken responsibility. It often strengthens it. Health, relationships, education, personal growth. People are more committed to goals they choose than goals imposed upon them. The more ownership you feel, the more energy you bring. Sometimes motivation doesn't disappear because people are lazy. It disappears because they feel powerless. They feel trapped, controlled, disconnected from the outcome. Give people meaningful choice, and everything changes. Choice creates ownership. Ownership creates engagement. Engagement creates excellence. Think about the moments when you felt most alive, most motivated, most productive, most creative, most fulfilled. Chances are
You weren't being forced. You were choosing. And that choice made all the difference. And that choice made all the difference. People want control. Control over their work, their choices, their lives. This is autonomy. When people have freedom, motivation increases. Because human beings perform best when they feel ownership. But freedom alone isn't enough. People don't just want control. They also want progress. The desire to improve, to grow, to become better than they were yesterday. And that's the second driver of motivation. Mastery.
Mastery, the second driver. Imagine learning a new skill. At first, everything feels difficult. You make mistakes. You struggle. You feel slow. And progress seems almost invisible. But then, something remarkable happens. You improve, little by little, day by day, step by step. Human beings love progress. We love seeing improvement. We love overcoming challenges. We love becoming better than we were yesterday. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall again and again and again. Yet they never stop trying. Because growth itself is rewarding. This desire don't disappear as we grow older. It simply changes form. We want to improve our careers, our health, our relationships, our skills. We seek progress.
Because progress creates meaning. And this desire is called mastery. And mastery is the drive to become excellent at something that matters. Not for applause, not for rewards, not for recognition, but because improvement itself feels satisfying. Because growth feels meaningful. Because becoming better is deeply human. Mastery is the pursuit of excellence, not perfection. Many people think mastery has a finish line, a point where you finally arrived, a moment when there's nothing left to learn. But that's not how mastery works. Every expert discovers the same truth. The more you learn, the more you realize how much remains unknown. Mastery isn't a destination. It's a journey, a lifelong pursuit. Think about the activities you genuinely enjoy. Playing an instrument, learning a language, building a business, writing, sports. Keeps you going. It's not always the outcome. It's the feeling of improvement, the excitement of progress. Every small win reinforces motivation. Every improvement fuels the next one. Mastery doesn't happen by accident. It requires effort, focus, consistency, and patience. The best performers in the world, athletes, musicians, scientists, entrepreneurs, never stop practicing. Because excellence is built through repetition, not talent alone. Here's something important. Mastery exists between comfort and overwhelm. If something is too easy, you get bored. If something is too difficult, you become discouraged. But when the challenge is just beyond your current ability, you grow. That's where mastery lives, at the edge of your comfort zone. Why mastery matters today? In a rapidly changing world, skills become outdated. Industries evolve. technology advances, opportunities shift. The people who thrive are not those who know everything. They're the people who keep learning, keep adapting, keep improving. Mastery creates resilience because growth never goes out of style.
Talk about a skill you've improved over time. Remember how difficult it felt in the beginning. Remember the mistakes, the frustration, the setbacks. Now, look at how far you've come. That feeling of progress, that's mastery at work.
The hidden reward. Mastery offers something money cannot buy. Confidence, competence, growth, fulfillment. The satisfaction of knowing you are becoming the person you are capable of being. And that's one of the strongest motivators in existence. Humans love progress. We enjoy getting better, learning, growing, improving. This is mastery, the drive to become excellent. But mastery isn't a destination. It's a lifelong pursuit. Freedom gives us ownership. Mastery gives us growth. But there is one more ingredient, the most powerful one of all. The reason we wake up every morning. The reason our work matters. Purpose. Purpose, the third driver.
Imagine waking up every morning with no reason to get out of bed. No goal. No direction. No sense of meaning. You might still go to work. You might still complete tasks. You might still stay busy. But something would be missing. Something essential.
For years, people believed success was the ultimate goal. More money, a bigger house, a higher position, more recognition. And while those things can be valuable, they don't always create fulfillment. Because human beings want more than achievement. They want meaning. And while success is important, they want purpose. Deep down, every person asks the same questions. Why am I doing this? What difference am I making? Does my work matter? Does my life matter? These questions go beyond survival, beyond rewards, beyond success. They point toward purpose. Purpose is the feeling that your actions contribute to something larger than yourself. It's knowing that your efforts matter, that your work has meaning, that your life creates value. Purpose connects today's actions to tomorrow's impact. It gives direction to effort and meaning to sacrifice. Consider two people doing the same work. One sees it as a paycheck. The other sees it as a contribution. One works for income. The other works for impact. One counts the hours. The other believes in the mission. The work may be identical, but the motivation is completely different. Have you ever noticed how passionate people seem to have endless energy? They face obstacles, setbacks, failures, criticism, yet they keep moving forward. Why? Because purpose is stronger than discomfort. Purpose keeps people going when motivation fades, when challenges appear,
when results take longer than expected. Human beings naturally want to contribute. We want to help, to create, to improve lives, to leave something meaningful behind. Purpose satisfies this desire. It allows us to feel connected to something larger, a family, a community, a cause, a vision. Purpose turns individual effort into collective impact. The most admired organizations don't just sell products, they sell meaning, a mission, a vision of a better future. People don't just want to earn a living, they want to be part of something important, something that matters. That's why purpose attracts commitment, not compliance. Anyone can stay motivated when life is easy, when results come quickly, when success arrives effortlessly. But what happens when things become difficult? When progress slows? When failure appears? When uncertainty grows? Purpose becomes your anchor, the reason you continue, even when the journey becomes hard. Think about the most meaningful moments in your life. Were they only about money, or achievement, or status?
Probably not. They were moments of contribution, connection, growth, impact. Moments when your actions mattered. Moments when your actions mattered. The highest form of motivation. Autonomy gives us freedom. Mastery gives us growth. Purpose gives us meaning. Together, they form the foundation of Motivation 3.0. The motivation that comes from within. The motivation that lasts. The motivation that inspires extraordinary performance. Because people don't just want success. They want significance. The core message. People don't just want success. They want meaning. A reason to wake up. A reason to contribute. This is purpose. And purpose transforms work into a mission. Now imagine what happens when autonomy, mastery, and purpose come together. Something extraordinary is created. Engagement. The state where people don't have to be pushed because they are already driven from within.
Why engagement matters. What happens when people have freedom? The freedom to make choices. The freedom to take ownership. The freedom to shape their work. What happens when they are constantly improving? Learning new skills. Growing stronger. Moving closer to excellence. And what happens when all of that is connected to a meaningful purpose? A mission bigger than themselves. A reason their efforts matter. Something extraordinary happens. The birth of engagement. The three drivers come together. Autonomy. Mastery. Purpose. And they create one powerful outcome. Engagement. A state where people are fully involved. Fully present. Fully committed. Not because someone is forcing them. Because they genuinely care. The difference between compliance and engagement. There is a huge difference between doing something because you have to and doing something because you want to. Compliance creates the minimum effort. Just enough to get by. Just enough to avoid consequences. Just enough to finish the task. Engagement creates something completely different. Energy, passion, initiative, excellence.
Think about a time when you became completely absorbed in something. You lost track of time. Hours felt like minutes. Distractions disappeared. Your attention became effortless. You weren't watching the clock. You weren't counting rewards. You weren't forcing yourself to continue. You were engaged, fully immersed in the experience. Engaged people don't wait to be told what to do. They look for opportunities. They solve problems. They contribute ideas. They take initiative. When challenges appear, they persist. When obstacles arise, they adapt. When setbacks occur, they keep moving. Because their motivation comes from within. Look at great athletes, great artists, great entrepreneurs, great innovators, great leaders. Most of them are not driven solely by rewards. They are driven by passion, growth, contribution, purpose. That's why they continue long after external rewards lose their power. Many people think energy creates engagement, but often the opposite is true. Engagement creates energy. When people care deeply about something,
They find strength they didn't know they had. They become resilient, focused, determined. Purpose fuels effort. Mastery fuels growth. Autonomy fuels ownership. Together, they fuel engagement. Now, the workplace example. Imagine two employees. One works only for a paycheck. The other believes in the mission, feels trusted, and is constantly learning. Both may have the same job, but their experiences are completely different. One is employed, the other is engaged. Now, reflection time. Think about your own life. When have you felt most alive, most focused, most productive, most fulfilled? What were you doing? What made it meaningful? The answer often reveals what truly motivates you. Now, the future of motivation. For decades, many
organizations focused only on rewards, more bonuses, more incentives. But the future belongs to something deeper. Creating environments where people can thrive, learn, contribute, and find meaning. Because engaged people don't need constant pushing. They are already moving forward. When autonomy, mastery, and purpose combine, something powerful happens. Engagement. People become energized, focused, committed. Not because they have to,
because they want to. Transition.
But if these principles are so powerful, why do so many organizations still rely on outdated systems? And what would happen if schools, businesses, and leaders embraced this new understanding of motivation? That's where the real transformation begins. Applying drive to your life. Understanding motivation is valuable, but understanding alone doesn't change your life. Application does. Knowledge only becomes powerful when it influences your actions. And that's where Daniel Pink's message becomes personal. It's easy to analyze companies, organizations, schools, managers. But the most important person to examine is yourself. Because motivation isn't just a business problem. It's a life problem. Every day, your level of motivation shapes your future. According to Drive, 3 simple questions reveal the truth. Question number 1, do I control my choices? Question number 2, am I improving? Question number 3, does my work matter? Simple questions, yet they reveal extraordinary insights. Think about your daily life. Do you feel ownership or do you feel trapped? Do your actions reflect your values or are you simply reacting to circumstances? Many people feel exhausted, not because they work too hard, but because they feel powerless. Motivation declines when freedom disappears.
Human beings need autonomy, the feeling that they are steering their own lives. Now ask yourself another question. Am I growing? Am I learning? Am I becoming better? Growth doesn't need to be dramatic. It can be small. One new skill, one new lesson, one step forward. Progress creates momentum, and momentum creates motivation. Without growth, people often feel stuck. And when people feel stuck, energy disappears. What about my work? Does my work matter? Does my effort contribute to something meaningful? Am I making a difference? Am I helping someone? Am I building something valuable? People can endure tremendous challenges if they believe those challenges serve a purpose. Meaning transforms effort into fulfillment. Now, what if I have freedom, but no growth? Life becomes stagnant. What if I improve constantly, but have no purpose? Progress feels empty. What if I have purpose, but no autonomy? You feel trapped. When one driver is missing, motivation begins to weaken. Something feels incomplete. When all 3 align. Now imagine something different. You wake up each day with freedom. You are learning and growing. And your work serves a meaningful purpose. Suddenly, everything changes. Effort feels lighter. Focus becomes stronger. Challenges become opportunities. Growth becomes exciting. This is where extraordinary performance lives. At the intersection of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Motivation becomes self-sustaining. Most people spend their lives searching for motivation, waiting for inspiration, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting to feel ready. But highly motivated people do something different. They build environments
that support autonomy. They pursue mastery. They connect their actions to purpose. And motivation becomes a natural outcome, not something they constantly chase. Take a moment right now. Ask yourself, honestly, do I control my choices? Am I improving? Does my work matter? Which answer feels strongest?
Which answer feels weakest? Your answer may reveal exactly where your motivation needs attention. Motivation isn't something you find. It's something you create. Through ownership, through growth, through purpose. And when those three elements align, human potential expands dramatically. Ask yourself, do I control my choices? Am I improving? Does my work matter? These three questions reveal your motivation. If one is missing, energy fades. But if all three are present, extraordinary performance becomes possible. And that brings us to the final lesson of drive. A lesson that challenges everything we thought we knew about success. Because the greatest motivators in life were never external. They were inside us all along.
Final transformation. For generations,
We believed motivation was simple. Work harder, get rewarded, perform better. That was the formula, the system, the assumption. And for a long time, very few people questioned it. Businesses offered bonuses. Schools offered grades. Parents offered incentives. Society offered status. Everything was built around the same idea. If you want people to perform, give them something they want. And sometimes, it works. For routine tasks. For predictable outcomes. For simple activities, rewards can be effective. But the modern world is different. Today's challenges require creativity, innovation, adaptability, problem solving. And that's where the old system begins to crack. Because rewards have limits. They can buy compliance, but not commitment. They can purchase effort, but not passion. They can influence behavior, but they cannot create purpose. Daniel Pink's message is powerful because it shifts the conversation. Instead of asking, how do we motivate people? He asks, what naturally motivates people? And the answer is surprisingly human. Not pressure, not control, not endless rewards, but inner drive. The freedom to choose. Human beings want autonomy, the ability to make decisions, to shape their lives, to take ownership of their actions. When people feel trusted, they become more engaged, more responsible, more creative. Freedom unlocks potential because ownership creates commitment. The desire to improve. Human beings also crave growth. We want to learn, to improve, to master our craft.
There is something deeply satisfying about progress, about becoming better than yesterday, about overcoming limitations. Mastery gives life momentum. It transforms effort into fulfillment, the need for purpose. And perhaps most importantly, human beings need meaning, a reason to contribute, a reason to persevere, a reason to care. Purpose
turns ordinary work into something extraordinary. A mission, a calling, contribution. Purpose gives direction to effort and significance to success. When autonomy is present, people feel ownership. When mastery is present, people feel growth. When purpose is present, people feel meaning. And when all three come together, something extraordinary happens. Motivation becomes self-sustaining. Energy comes naturally. Engagement becomes effortless. Excellence becomes possible. A new way to view success. Imagine a world where people work because they care, not because they're forced. Imagine schools where students learn because they're curious, not because they're chasing grades. Imagine organizations where people innovate because they believe in the mission, not because they're chasing bonuses. This is the future Daniel Pink describes. A future powered by intrinsic motivation. A future where human potential is unleashed. Take a moment to think about your own life. What truly motivates you?
What gives you energy? What makes you feel alive? What kind of work would you do even if no one was watching? The answer may reveal your deepest source of motivation. For generations, we believed motivation came from rewards. But rewards only go so far. True motivation comes from within. The freedom to choose, the desire to improve, the need for purpose. Autonomy, mastery, purpose.
These are the real drivers of human behavior, the forces behind innovation, achievement, creativity, and fulfillment. Because extraordinary performance isn't bought, it isn't forced, it isn't controlled. Extraordinary performance is inspired from the inside out, and that changes everything.